In this episode, we're diving into a topic that touches every corner of digital communication, email deliverability. Have you ever wondered if your emails actually reach their destination, or do they vanish into some sort of digital abyss? And that's the burning question we're tackling in today's episode. So if your business heavily depends on email to communicate with customers and clients and or to make sales, you need to know whether your communications are actually being seen by your audience. So I've invited email deliverability expert, MV Braverman, back to the show to shed light on this vital topic. MV is not just an expert. She's a seasoned warrior when it comes to technology and email systems with years of experience making sure messages hit their mark. So she's here to demystify the complex changes and updates that could be impacting your email effectiveness right now. So if you're ready to ensure your emails not only send, but also land with impact, stay tuned. We're about to unravel the mysteries of email deliverability together. Welcome to the Online Business Launchpad podcast. I'm Trudy Rankin, and I bring you stories, tips, and advice from online entrepreneurs who are finding success. Because if we've done it, so can you. I've been running my own online business for 9 years now and counting, with more than a few twists and turns as I've learned what to do and what not to do to achieve my goals. And because of what I've learned, I've become passionate about helping busy online business owners like you hit your goals without burning out or having to hire a big team. I've used my experience and the experience of others to help hundreds of people grow their online business. And one of my greatest joys is working with people who, because of life circumstances, need a flexible work from home or work from anywhere option that helps them pay the bills. My mission is simple. I want to help you solve the challenges you face as a far too busy online business owner so you can have more time and money for yourself and your family and more choices in how you live your life. So if you're ready to, once again, dive into online business building and look at whether your emails are being delivered, stick around and we'll get cracking. Welcome to the Online Business Launchpad podcast. Today, I have got MV Braverman with me, and MV's been on the show before, and they're talking about Zapier, which is one of those things that is necessary, but occasionally does my head in. But today, I asked MV if they'd come back in and talk about something that's been a big deal recently for a lot of people, and it affects a lot of people. And that something is called email deliverability. And email deliverability is a bit of a mouthful. It really just means when you hit send, you want to make sure that your email actually arrives at the place where it's supposed to arrive and the person who it's meant to be sent to gets to see it. And there's been a lot of changes basically in the back end with Google and a lot of other things. And I'm going to get MV to explain that in a little bit. But it was all alphabet soup, things like DMARC and lots of acronyms that you look at them and you go, I have no idea what that means. There was lots of warning signs that would pop up whenever I would get into my email platforms, email service provider platforms. And I'm going, what? So I don't understand any of this. And so I actually got MV to help me come and have a look at my own email systems. And because I have several branches of my business running, it ended up being quite an experience, and it was actually a lot bigger job than I thought. It was a lot more confusing, and I realized I didn't know anywhere near as much about my email deliverability systems as I thought I did. And so I asked MV to come on today just to help demystify this for you as well, to understand what you can do to both comply with the recent changes around email settings and deliverability, and also just to help you get your things set up so that you can have confidence that your emails actually go when you hit send. So welcome to the show, MV, and thank you for being on it.
Thank you for having me once again, Trudy.
We're both smiling because it was a very intensely confusing, interesting, in quotes, time trying to get the emails sorted out, because I didn't realize when we first started the process how much was there and what a spaghetti mess it was, because there was just a lot there. I'll just leave it at that in terms of lots there. But It's been fascinating, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a minute, but one of the biggest things that I got out of the process was MB said, she said, Trudy, please set up reporting. You should set up reporting. And so we did that. It took a little bit of extra work, but we did. And I'm going, I can see my open rates and all that sort of stuff until I started getting the reports back. And I'm looking at the reports and I'm going, oh, that's good. This particular email, 100% sent. It's all fine. Everything's working fine. And then I get one that says 85% of your sends have been affected by X. And I'm going, oh, that's a problem. That is a problem. I don't even know what it means, but it's a problem because if it means I'm sending emails and they're not arriving, it matters a lot, especially if you generate revenue from in newsletters and things like that. There's a definite issue here. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have this problem and they don't even know it. We're going to talk about that today. But before we jump into the meat of the whole thing, MV, can you just introduce yourself a little bit? Tell people a little bit more about yourself and why you're working on email deliverability now as your business.
Well, it's a long story way back when. I like to introduce myself by saying I've been a techie since the days of dial-up, which is true, which ages me a little bit, but that's okay. I still hear those dial-up sounds in my sleep if I ever hear them. But I've been in IT support for my entire career. And so when I started my business, that's what I did, is just all kinds of support. I did WordPress support and all kinds of things. I thought, surely if someone is leaving their corporate job and starting a coaching or consulting, they would probably miss their help desk. Because that was one of my favorite roles, as an internal help desk at a relatively small company where I got to know everyone. I had the first day intern and I helped the CXOs. That positioning, either I was bad at selling it or it didn't work. People were confused and they kept asking me, do you do Kajabi? As a response to, I can help you, match you with the right technology for you and set it up and get you going. Last year, I realized that I really need to focus and specialize. I've resisted the whole niching thing. But one of my favorite things to do was working with email. And the thing that I love about email is it's a very democratic marketing channel. Not a single platform owns it. And every single time someone says email's dying, they're lying. It's not. My kids use email. People are going to keep using email. It's been around for a long time. And so that's what I started focusing on right when Google and Yahoo made their big announcement in October. And then things were very quiet. This is a big deal, but no one's saying anything until January when everyone started to say something.
I found that interesting because you and I were chatting right around that whole time. And because I can remember you saying you couldn't understand why people weren't more worried about it. Because it is a big deal. It was a big deal. And I talked to a few other entrepreneurs who are in this space, not from this position that you are in terms of the deliverability side of things, but basically anybody who works with people in helping them set up their emails inside an email service platform had to deal with these changes. And it wasn't a thing until suddenly it was a crisis. And I found that absolutely fascinating. So once all of the stuff hit the fan, what happened then?
Well, I definitely got a lesson in marketing, watching everyone position it and do the whole, the sky is falling, February 1st is coming. Let me say, there was not a firm February 1st. There's a giant switch. This is not a New Year ball drop situation. But it was very interesting to see how different service providers and different companies approached it. And still, there's plenty of people who don't know anything about it.
So talk to us a little bit about the whole alphabet soup sort of a thing. Just talk a little bit about some of the acronyms that go with the changes that have been put in place, and just because people would have seen them, but they wouldn't know what they mean.
Well, broadly, the 3 requirements that Google and Yahoo put in place, and these have been best practices for a long time. They're just now switching from a carrot to the stick approach because the carrot wasn't working. So broadly, it is authenticate your email, send emails that people want and make it easy for them to unsubscribe if they no longer want your emails. Authenticating your emails is basically be who you say you are. Because phishing and spam and cyber attacks are a huge problem. The majority of successful cyber attacks originate with email. And it's a huge issue. Google and Yahoo want you to have some kind of credentials to let you through into their customers' inboxes. And that's really what it boils down to. And so we have the alphabet soup of SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. I still sometimes have to look up what those stand for. So SPF stands for Sender Policy Framework, and it is a record that you add to your domain DNS records, which is domain name system. There are a lot of acronyms in this business. So it is a record that you put usually at the domain top level. So mvbraverman.com, for example, or inboxwelcome.com that says, so for example, I use Brevo and Google Workspace for my marketing and for my one-on-one emails. So in my SPF record, I will say only Brevo and Google servers are authorized to send emails on my behalf. So if someone tries to fake an email and sends it from Outlook and pretends that it's from me, the server that they're sending it to is going to say, that doesn't pass the smell test. This isn't Brevo and this isn't Google. No, this is not a good email. They're not who they say they are. So our goal with all of this is to say we are who we say we are.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And that makes me sit back and go, I can see why it was so complicated when you helped me do mine, because I send stuff from several different places. So that was complicated. Okay, what about DKIM?
The DKIM is Domain Keys Identified Mail, and it's a kind of cryptographic seal. If you imagine that your email is like a little package that you're sending to someone, it's the seal that you put to tape it up. If the seal is open when it gets to the recipient, they know that something hinky happened. So DKIM, one of its uses is that it says this email was not intercepted or changed in transit. It is exactly as it was when it left the sender. So if, for example, you are working for a corporation and they actually add one of those giant disclaimers to all of their emails, that can break DKIM because it was changed from the moment it was sent to the moment that it arrived.
That makes sense. And when you're explaining that, I suddenly flashed into my head just a picture of back in the olden times when they used to use wax to seal the letters. Wax signet ring.
Yes.
Basically melt the wax envelope, stamp it with your seal ring. And as you said, if that wax is cracked when it arrives, somebody's opened that letter and had a look at it and maybe wrote something else in it, which is exactly the same as what you're saying.
Maybe steamed it open. And the thing is that when we send if I'm a Gmail customer or even a Google Workspace customer, and I just set up a new account and send you an email, it does have SPF and DKIM. It's just Google's SPF and DKIM. So you're sending your little package, it has Google stamp and it has Google logo on the tape. And there's nothing about it that says it's you. It's just Google. Now, Google has a great reputation. Well, that's it. Unfortunately, I probably haven't mentioned this, but 91% of phishing originates with Google, which is part of the reason why they are cracking down on this.
Did you
but
say
regardless,
91%?
91%, yes, is a big problem. But essentially, if I set up a MailChimp or any other platform, I start with them. And I can't actually start sending emails immediately without setting up my own domain authentication. But again, MailChimp's going to put their own MailChimp tape on it or ConvertKit tape on it or whatever. And we'll transition into this a little bit later, but it is about having your own brand and having your own sender reputation. I don't know if you know the saying, you are the average of 5 people you spend the time with. So in some ways, when you pick a platform and go with their default authentication, you become the average of the senders of the other customers that they have. And so if they let a lot of spammers send, then you become tarred with the same brush. And the benefit of setting up your own, going through all of the effort of setting up your own authentication, your own SPF and DKIM records, is that you now stand on your own. So you're no longer like in a giant apartment complex. You have a detached townhouse now.
That makes a lot of sense. That actually makes heaps of sense. That whole, you're the average of the 5 people that are sending emails right next to you thing. And obviously that's
more than 5, but yes.
But yeah. And so if you end up tarred with the same brush as people who are doing phishing or scamming, that's not a good thing. It's not a good look for your brand. It's not a good look for you in terms of being able to get customers to trust you. That matters. And let's just do the last sort of, one more. I'm sure there's more, but the one that sort of stood out the most to me, one more bit of alphabet soup and an acronym, and that's DMARC. Can you talk about that, what it is, what it stands for, and why it matters?
So DMARC stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. And so it builds, the authentication part is actually SPF and DKIM. There's not an additional thing that it does, but it adds that really critical component of reporting, which is what I really want to drive home, is like R is for DMARC, and that R is your friend. You will see things in those DMARC reports that you will not see anywhere else. They build on each other. The most important thing that I want people to take away is SPF and DKIM have been around for a while, and then DMARC was built on top of them. Unfortunately, one of the things that I see a lot is people just follow. They either let their email marketing platform just automatically do it, or they just follow something and they just put the very basic DMARC record, like the barely legal fig leaf record that I call it. And they don't actually do the underlying required thing, which is SPF and DKIM. And that causes DMARC to fail, inevitably. And the R in DMARC, I think, is the most important letter to understand, which is reporting, as you've mentioned. If you don't have reporting set up, you don't know that these things are happening. So your emails are just quietly disappearing into the ether and not getting into your customers' inboxes. Or not even customers, it could be your friends. You're sending them emails from your business account. Those are going to be affected too. It's a whole domain issue.
Yeah. So I want to just really hammer that point home. And obviously, if people are listening, they heard what you said, but can you just explain a little bit more about why it matters if somebody is sending emails to customers and they are just quietly disappearing into the ether? What does it mean for my business if my emails aren't getting through?
Well, first, actually, I wanted to, and we started this conversation, we talked about deliverability. There's a difference between delivery and deliverability. So the reports that you see in MailChimp or ConvertKit dashboard that say 100% of your emails are delivered, those are delivery. So that means the server accepted it. Gmail said, okay, this mailbox exists. It's not full. I'll take it. It says nothing about where that email actually ended up. They could have tossed it completely. They could have put it straight into spam. Absolutely nothing. All you know is it didn't bounce. And if I sent you an email and I transposed the R and the U, I would get back an email from saying this user doesn't exist. So that's a bounce. And so that would be a missed delivery. But deliverability, is it going to spam? Is it going into inbox? So my goal is to help emails get into inboxes. Is to say, my goal is to help wanted emails get into inboxes.
I think that's a really important point. Yeah, keep going.
And so it's just like being ghosted. You send someone an email, it ends up in their spam. It's not that they don't want to talk to you, but it feels like you got ghosted.
Yeah. And we all know what that feels like. It's not a good feeling. You put your heart and soul into something, send it off, and you get crickets back. And once I started getting those DMARC reports, and they're really simple reports, you can glance at them and you've consumed the information that's there and available. But if everything's great, it's great. You can just ignore them. But if it's not great, it's, whoa, wait a minute, hang on, what's going on here? Why is it going wrong? And what do I do about it?
Yeah, it's the only way you will know. If you don't have the reporting set up, things could be going completely wrong in silence, and you have no way of knowing you're being ghosted by everybody else. And I do want to clarify those. The actual reports are in a pretty unreadable format called the XML. So what I've set you up with is a report parsing service, which gives you a nice dashboard and a nice overview. And sometimes, and that's one thing I've seen in a lot of forums, people actually just set it up to have the reports go to their own email addresses. And then they're like, what is this weird stuff? I don't know what to do with it. I've actually seen someone say, yeah, I just send it to trash. I just set up a filter to just send it to trash. I'm like, why did you even bother then? You are missing out on so much great.
That is very true. And I'm smiling a little bit because in my previous existence in my career, XML is actually a markup language. And I actually had to do some work to help develop some of the standards way back in the day for government. And I've actually had a bit of experience with it. And yeah, gobbledygook is the right way of talking about it.
If you're experienced enough, you can figure it out, but there's no reason to.
No, there's no need to. Because the reports that I get are really, when we're using, you help me set up that service that translates XML into common English, and not just common English, but it's like a visual way of being able to consume the report. And they're really easy to read and insightful and informative. So that really matters. So I'm going to ask you, if somebody is getting these reports and they've done the smart thing and not send them to the trash, to the bin, or to spam, or whatever, to the threader, and they're looking at the reports and something seems a little bit off, what should be the next step that they do? What should they do to go and investigate what's there?
With all of these reporting services, there is a way to drill down into the actual specific, what is the part that went wrong? And they all look different and they will all give you different insights. So it's hard to be general. But one of the things you want to see, is this something that's broken in my setup? Or is this actually performing as expected and it's someone who's trying to spoof my domain that's being rejected? So if it's the latter case, well, A, someone's trying to spoof you, which is a problem. But you also know, hey, it's performing as intended. This was the goal for Google and for Yahoo and for all of them, is to have this certainty that, it is in fact Trudy sending this email or her authorized representative.
Okay, that's interesting. That is interesting. I didn't know that about the whole potential spoofing things. I'm going to share, we may or may not keep this in the thing, but I was going to just, one of the ones that makes me go,
There's always going to be some negatives. So, for example, like calendar invites, or if someone forwards your email, that breaks some things.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So for the people who are watching, this is for my menopausatech.com newsletter.
It is a pretty small number of emails.
It's a small number. There's not that many emails that have gone through. But the fact that it says that only 25% of those emails were SPF or DKIM aligned and 75% were not aligned, well, that is a worrisome number.
Well, let's see what's up.
Yeah. So basically, if scrolling down, basically tells me the sources, and then it looks like there's something funny there.
So the first one is, I'm guessing it is the contact form, because I set you up on SendGrid for your WordPress emails.
Yep. So the point is that we look at this report and in order to figure out what's going wrong, we look at the percentages, then we look at the sources, figure out what they are, because who remembers these things.
and see what the problem is. So SPF is passing and aligning on the SiteGround email. It is the DKIM that is not aligning, and it may be passing. So that's the slightly confusing part. Now, the other two, and I think you don't use ConvertKit or MailChimp.
I do.
For
this one, I do actually.
Okay.
This was
you use both ConvertKit and MailChimp?
Yeah, which could be contributing.
I don't recall actually setting this up for you. I think you said you have them, but I don't think I actually ever got access to them to set them up. Remember, because you were thinking about it. So that is why it is not aligning. It is not passing. And it is not going to go anywhere.
It's an interesting little conundrum, which is a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So with that, we don't need to get into too much more detail about this.
Right.
If this turns up, if this type of an issue turns up in the reporting, what does that mean for the emails that are being sent?
We don't know. Okay, let me clarify this. So there's 3 levels of enforcement for DMARC. So you can have, and this is me telling the recipients what to do with my emails if DMARC doesn't pass. So there's a policy of none, there's a policy of quarantine, and there's a policy of reject. So we start with everyone, with my clients, and always start with a none. That's a monitoring policy. And so for most people, that's going to be the case. So if I send an email saying it's from themenopauseeffect.com and my DMARC policy is set to none, then even if it doesn't actually pass DMARC, so if it fails those ConvertKit or MailChimp emails, technically telling to the receiving server, don't worry about it, just do what you would normally do. It's cool. We're cool. This is just, you start out with this policy to see what is going on, because inevitably there will be some sending channel that pops up. So for a lot of people, it's their WordPress contact forms that pop up, for example, or other rogue little streams of email that they didn't think about. And then ideally you would say, okay, I got the hang of it. I know all of my email channels were good. We're going to move to enforcement. So then you can set your policy to either quarantine or reject. So that means I am telling you, like I'm sending you this email and I'm telling you, if this email doesn't pass your checks, put it into spam or just completely nuke it. And the thing that's really important to understand is you're not actually obligated to follow my request. For example, a corporation that maybe has very strong spam filters and very strong firewalls is going to say, I don't care what you tell me to do with it. If it doesn't pass DMARC, it's going to get nuked. And that's actually fairly common. Or I might say, even if you tell me to reject it, I'm still gonna, it's cool. I'll take it. We're good. In general, though, most receiving servers will say, okay, I'll do what you tell me to. Even if it seems like, okay, well, it doesn't pass, but I tell you to don't worry about it, we're cool, right? That may or may not, in fact, be the case. We might not, in fact, be cool. I might still send your emails into the trash bin or into spam. So that's why you want to make sure that no matter what your enforcement policy is, make sure that you are actually passing all of the little checks.
So I'm just trying to paraphrase in my head because it's slowly starting to make sense.
I know.
It's so basically starting out with setting some policies about how things get sent and around the sending side of it. And then the next bit, which I think is the DKIM, it's around the receiving, the enforcement around the receiving side of things.
Okay. So here's an example that I did in like my first January workshop is, imagine that you are a nonprofit called Better World, and you want to thank your donors, your corporations, the corporate donors, for being a great supporter. So you want to send them nice little packages for New Year. And so you package them up nicely and you deliver them to their corporate mail rooms. And so in the mail rooms, we have our big core and we have our small core. So in the big core mail room, they look at your package and they say, oh, it looks like that seal's been cut. So even if you say it's okay if the seal's been cut, just send it to Sally. She's been a great supporter of us. We want her to have our gift. Their corporate policy is going to be, if it doesn't look perfect, it's not getting to this employee. And we won't tell you about it. So the other part of DMARC is to say, hey, if something's going wrong, can you let me know about it so I can fix it? They are not, again, they may or may not tell you about it so you can fix it. Their policy is no. If it doesn't look perfect, it's not getting delivered, no matter what you tell me. And then in small core, they're a little more relaxed. Their corporate policy is just their security people are like, okay, that's cool. We'll do what you tell us. We'll tell you that there was a problem, and we'll still deliver it to the person. But again, it is their security office that makes that decision. It's their mailroom. But you don't know what's going on in their mailroom. You have no way of knowing. All you know is that package got through the door, the courier delivered it.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I'm still refining down. So the first bit, it's about me sending stuff and the settings that I have control over. The second bit is about who's receiving it and the settings that they have control over. And then the third bit is if something's gone wrong in that sending over the receiving process, I need reports so that I can know what's broken so that I can fix it. And I think that's the guts of just the whole conversation around email deliverability. Just in a nutshell, that's what it's about. And that's why it's so important. And it's fascinating to me, having been through this process, not really understanding it at all. Because even though I'm a techie person, I'm not that techie. I'm not that into the detail of the techie side of things. And understanding how it works and functions is actually important to understanding why I need to have this set up, why I need to be getting the reports back, because now I know there's a problem and we've chatted and we figured out what the problem is. And now we can fix the problem and now we can move forward, because email deliverability matters a lot to me, because having based my business a lot around creating content and emailing it to people, if it's not getting to people, then basically it's going to just basically mess up my business model completely. And it's probably going to be mixing up a few of the businesses for the people who are listening, because they don't have their email set up the way that it needs to be set up and they don't know that there's a problem. So MB, this is really enlightening. Do you want to go ahead and add something to that?
The most important thing is if you followed your email marketing platform's guide, then you took care of the authentication for that channel. The thing is that they don't tell you, look at all of your other channels. So talk your Google Workspace or your anything else that you use.
Well, you just talking about that for a second, from what we discovered when we were doing it for myself, WordPress forms, contact. I use ConvertBox. Basically, people can get in touch with me that way. There's a few other things as well, things that I hadn't even thought about, where people can actually get in touch with me. And I didn't realize that I needed to be aware of the settings for those things, because if people are trying to get in touch with me through ways that I've made available and it's not getting to me because I didn't set it up right or whatever, that's a problem as well.
Yeah. And it's not a set it and forget it. That's the most important thing. Is if you move from SiteGround to Bluehost, or if you go to Google Workspace, you have to then set up for that.
Yeah. So if you take anything away at all, people, if you're listening to this, if you take anything away at all, it's about paying attention to this stuff because it matters for your business, and make sure you have reporting set up so that you can take care of problems when they arise. So yeah, that's fantastic, MB.
I know it's a lot. So I actually have a lot of people with very small lists or almost no lists reaching out to me, and it doesn't make sense for them to pay me. I actually have a DIY authentication guide. If you're setting it up yourself, I want you to do it right. And if you need support, you have a larger list, because especially if you have maybe more than 7,000 subscribers, there's a lot more considerations. And so please get in touch and we'll get you set up.
Thanks for that. And I can vouch for your work because you certainly helped me get my stuff sorted out. So MB, we'll put the link to that in the show notes. And if people were interested in getting in touch with you, where would they go?
You can find me at inboxwelcome.com or email. Email's always a good channel, mv@inboxwelcome.com.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, MV. It's been great talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you so much for joining us on the Online Business Launchpad podcast. If today's episode on email deliverability opened your eyes to the intricacies of reaching your audience effectively, I'd love to hear about it. Leave an honest review and hit subscribe. Your feedback not only helps me to improve, but it also helps others know if this podcast is right for them. And remember, every review brings me closer to helping more online business owners like you make informed decisions. So don't be shy. Let me know your thoughts. And thank you once again for spending your time with me. Here's to making sure every email you send finds its way home. If you're a longtime listener to the Online Business Launchpad podcast, you'll know that I often talk about Pat Flynn's SPI Pro community. Now, what you might not know is that I'm a founding member of that community. And every year I keep signing up because I get so much value out of it. For example, every month I meet with a mastermind group whose members are at the same spot on the entrepreneurial journey as I am. And we celebrate our wins and navigate challenges together. And if we want to chat in between meetings, we just easily jump into the space that's reserved just for our mastermind and just say whatever's on our mind. It's a really supportive space where we all keep growing in confidence and capabilities, knowing that someone or several someones have got our back. And that's not all the value I get from being part of the SPI Pro community. I have access to really relevant trainings that Pat has put together. Plus, I've connected with several amazing guests for my podcast, experts who shared invaluable insights with my audience. And the opportunities just keep coming. I've had the honor of being on Pat Flynn's own podcast and even teaching other SPI Pro members about some of the things that I'm expert in. And being a part of the SPI Pro community is like having my own special group of advisors that I can reach out to anytime I need them. Imagine having that network at your fingertips, where every connection inspires and every interaction teaches something new. That's what SPI Pro is all about for me. It's more than a community. It's a place where we as entrepreneurs come together to push the boundaries of what we can achieve. So are you ready to be part of something bigger? To learn, share, and grow alongside fellow business owners who are just as driven as you? Check it out for yourself and see for yourself the difference a truly collaborative community can make. And if you'd like to use my affiliate link to sign up, go to onlinebusinessliftoff.com/SPI-Pro. If you do, I'll receive a small commission at no extra cost to you, for which I thank you. And once you're in the community, say hello, and I'll be delighted to show you around. So join me in the SPI Pro community, and let's reach new heights together. Once again, that's onlinebusinessliftoff.com/SPI-Pro. And we'll see you there.